Scuba diving looks like a global product. Same certification agencies, same equipment, same waiver forms that nobody reads, and on paper, a dive shop in the Caribbean and a dive shop here in the Philippines are selling exactly the same thing. And that's the trap. Because the moment you actually move regions, you realize you're no longer running the same business. Even if you're offering the same dives on reefs of broadly similar quality to people who all just want to breathe underwater without dying. I'll be honest, I came here to the Philippines with a bit of a Caribbean ego. I thought, I know how to run a high margin dive shop. And then I walked down a beach here and saw 15 dive shops, just in a 1.5 kilometer stretch, all of them offering the same 9 a.m. boat dive. And I realized then that my old playbook wasn't going to work. Now I'm not the expert anymore. I'm the student. I haven't taken a single paying customer yet. I already know that I won't be able to charge Caribbean prices here. Not because the diving's bad. It's not. It's different. I mean, I'm loving every single minute of it. All the macro, all the weird stuff. I do miss the sharks and the rays, but I don't miss the dead coral. The reason is simpler and far more uncomfortable. Pricing power isn't determined by how many people want to go diving. It's determined by how many similar options they believe they have at the exact moment they're deciding on who to book with. In economic terms, that's about substitutability and competitive pressure. In real-world terms, it means this. If a customer feels they can swap you out for the shop next door or one that's 2 minutes down the road, price becomes the conversation, whether you like it or not. And that single difference changes the business before you build a website, before you hire staff, and before you even open the door. And that's what this video is about, and why the Caribbean and the Philippines are not the same business, even before opening day. If you've watched my earlier videos on why scuba pricing is broken, this is the macro explanation. Same problem, just zoomed out. In basic price theory, going back to Alfred Marshall, pricing power is not determined by how many people want to dive. It's determined by how many similar options they believe at the moment they have to book. Economists, as I've said, call this substitutability. One of the biggest mistakes people make when they look at dive businesses globally is assuming that because the product looks the same and smells the same, the market must be about the same too. You've got the same open water course, the same advanced course, the same nitrox card, the gear brands hanging in the wall, all of them look the same. So it's very, very tempting to think, well, this is basically the same business, just palm trees are in a different order. Only thing is, it isn't. Because a product isn't just what you sell, it's the environment in which you sell it into. In the Caribbean, most dive shops operate in markets where options feel limited at the customer level. Not because there aren't enough tourists, there are millions, but because there are fewer operators doing broadly the same thing in the same place at the same time. In much of Southeast Asia and currently here in the Philippines, the opposite is true. The moment a customer starts looking, they're presented with a wall of options that all appear to offer the same outcome. Safe diving, decent kit, qualified instructors, and a good day underwater. From the customer's point of view, those differences between operators are often really marginal. Different logos, different Instagram feeds, slightly different boats, otherwise all exactly the same. And if a customer feels they can replace you with 2 taps on their phone, which, let's be honest, they can, then price stops being a strategy and starts being gravity. At that point, you're no longer competing on whether you can deliver the product, because everyone can. You're competing on how easily the customer feels they can swap you out. And that's why 2 dive shops can sell the exact same certifications in water of similar quality and operate under completely different economic pressure. Same product, completely different market. One of the strangest realizations when you move into a market like this is that pricing becomes a constraint before it ever becomes a decision. In the Caribbean, pricing is something you actively choose. You look at your costs, your positioning, your capacity, and you decide where you want to sit in the marketplace. Here, the market has already had that conversation without you. By the time the customer finds your website, they've already seen half a dozen other operators offering what looks to them like the exact same experience, often with prices right there on the screen. So instead of asking, how much should we charge? The real question becomes, how far away from the market can we afford to be? Now that's a very different mindset. That's what Michael Porter calls high internal rivalry. When I talk about Porter's internal rivalry, I'm not trying to give you a business school lecture. I'm trying to give you a map of why you feel like you're fighting for your very life every morning. So look at this. When your suppliers have power and your buyers have infinite choice, you get squeezed in the middle. Because once price is visible and easily comparable, it stops becoming a strategic lever and starts acting like a ceiling. You can charge above it, but only if you give the customer a reason not to keep scrolling. And here's the uncomfortable part. In a high-density dive market like this, most operators don't consciously undercut each other. They simply respond to the same pressures, make the same small concessions, and slowly compress the entire price. Pricing isn't necessarily a choice you make in a vacuum. It's a ceiling that's already been built over your head. You aren't choosing to be cheap. You're defending your existence against a market that treats you as if you're an interchangeable nobody. And nobody wakes up and says, today, I'm going to destroy my margins. It just kind of happens. What you end up with is a market where being busy is easy, being profitable is hard. Boats are full, instructors are flat out, and owners are wondering why, somehow, the numbers still don't work out the way they expected. Now, that's not a failure of effort or competence. It's the structure of the market doing exactly what it always does under this level of competitive pressure. And the important thing to understand is none of that is visible on opening day, but all of it is already in motion. Up to this point, I've been talking about why pricing pressure exists in the market like this. High rivalry, high substitutability, very little perceived difference at the point of booking. But here's the important bit, and this is why it matters. If pricing pressure is created before the customer ever speaks to you, then it cannot be fixed after they've asked you for a price. And that's where most dive centers go wrong. In economic terms, by the time a customer is comparing prices, you are already operating in what Edward Chamberlain calls a market of close substitutes. At that point, rational behavior for the customer is to shop on price. And rational behavior for the operator is to feel trapped by it. So the real question becomes, how do you stop being treated as a close substitute in the first place? This is where differentiation actually lives. And differentiating what you actually do starts earlier than most people think. For many dive centers, we only compete at the bottom of the purchasing funnel, at the comparing stage, when the client assumes that the underlying product is essentially the same. And by then, Porter's internal rivalry kicks in hard and price becomes the only variable left to compete on. But some businesses never allow the customer to enter that comparison phase. This is where we borrow from Prahalad's idea of core competencies. C.K. Prahalad talked about core competencies, the unique capabilities that are hard for competitors to copy. In diving, that competency isn't usually the dive itself, it's your sales funnel. But your core competency is not a marketing channel. It's not Instagram, it's not YouTube, and it's certainly not Google Ads. It's your organizational capability. And in this context, the capability is the systematic ability to attract the right customers early on and on your terms. When that works, something very specific happens economically. The customer enters the funnel with pre-formed preferences. There's no longer asking who's cheapest, they're asking, are these the people I trust to do it properly? And that shift is everything. Because pricing power is not determined by how many people want to dive, it's determined by how many equivalent alternatives the customer believes they have at the moment they decide to book. If your first interaction with a customer is a message asking for a discount, that's not a pricing problem, that's a customer acquisition problem. Marketing, in this sense, is not promotion. It's not shouting louder, it's not posting more photos of turtles. When done properly, marketing becomes a strategic filter. It decides who enters your funnel, at what stage, and with what expectations. Two dive centers can spend the exact same amount of money on marketing. One attracts price shoppers, and the other attracts the diver 6 months before they fly. By solving a specific set of problems or owning a specific niche, that second shop has earned pricing power because they aren't competing with the guy next door. They're the only ones the customer is even talking to. If you want less price pressure, you don't start at the price. You start with the how and who you attract in the first place. Now, before anyone thinks that I'm standing here telling dive center owners to just do better marketing or just charge more, let me be very clear. This is hard. I know it's hard because I'm trying to do it right now. New country, new market, new customer expectations, same theory, very, very different reality. It's easy to talk about differentiation and pricing power from a distance. It's much harder when you've got staff to pay, boats to fuel, compressors to service, and a season that doesn't pause while you refine your positioning. And this is where a lot of the advice in the dive industry quietly breaks down. We hear it all the time. Just charge more, just focus on value, just market better. All of that assumes time, margin, and mental space. Three things that most dive center owners don't have. Structurally, this industry is very good at operations. We're trained to manage risk, to deliver training, to move people and their equipment safely and efficiently from one place to the other. What we're not set up to do is shape demand. And that's not a criticism, it's just historical. Most dive centers were built to serve walk-in tourism and not to engineer customer acquisition systems or long-term positioning. There's also a compounding problem here, and it matters. Low margins limit your ability to invest in acquisition. Weak acquisition increases pricing pressure. Pricing pressure compresses margins even further, and the loop doesn't ever stop. That loop doesn't exist because businesses are bad at business. It exists because the structure of the market reinforces it. Add to that the reality that a good idea gets copied quickly, differentiation erodes, and platforms reward sameness. Shouting louder rarely ever makes you clearer. Then there's timing. Doing this properly takes time. Time to build trust, time to refine messaging, time to attract the right audience. But most dive centers are forced to make decisions day by day, week by week, when the rent is due and the boat needs fuel. Long-term strategy becomes a luxury. So if you're thinking, this all makes sense, but I can't see how to do it without taking a hit, first, you're not wrong. And that's why I'm telling you this. Not because I've cracked it, not because I've solved the problem, but because I believe the theory is sound and I'm testing it in real time in a competitive market with my own money and my own dive shop and my own risk. This move to the Philippines isn't just a lifestyle decision. It's a live case study. I'm going to see what works, what doesn't, and what turns out to be much, much harder than I ever thought from the textbooks. Because if we're going to talk honestly about pricing pressure in diving, we also have to be honest about why it persists and why good operators struggle to escape it. If we're going to talk honestly about fixing pricing in this industry, we have to admit why most shops stay stuck in the gap between theory and reality. This isn't about blame though, it's about understanding the system we're operating in so that we can make better, more deliberate choices inside of it. If you, like me, have tried to move away from price-led selling, or you're stuck in that gap between theory and reality, I would genuinely be interested to hear your experience in the comments. So, where does this go next? If the argument I've made so far is sound, the pricing pressure is created before the booking, not at the point of sale, then that's where I need to focus my efforts. Not on discounts, not on competing harder at the bottom, but on what happens upstream. Over the next few videos, what I'm going to do is treat this move to the Philippines as a live experiment. Not a blueprint, not advice, a test. I'm going to be looking at three things in particular. First, who am I actually trying to attract? Not more divers, but specific ones. Ones whose expectations, motivations, and risk tolerance align with the kind of diving and training I believe is worth delivering. Second, what I'm signaling before price ever comes up. What am I implicitly promising through language structure and positioning? And just as importantly, what I am deliberately not offering and to whom. And third, where I'm showing up in the decision-making process. Not everywhere, not all the time, but in the places where people are actively deciding who they trust and not who's cheapest. Some of this will work, some of it won't. There's one more piece to this experiment that I want to put out there on the table. If pricing power is genuinely being shaped earlier in the purchase funnel, then dive centers shouldn't be trying to solve this alone. So this is a direct call out, not to dive centers, but to platform builders, tool creators, and software teams who believe they've built something that can actually move the needle before the booking happens. If you've developed a product that helps dive businesses attract the right customers, influence decisions earlier, and reduce reliance on price-led competition, then this is your opportunity to prove it. I'm happy to use your tool in the real world as a live case study. Not a sponsored mention, not a sales pitch, but an honest, practical test of whether it delivers meaningful results inside a highly competitive dive market. If it works, I'll show exactly how and why. If it doesn't, I'll show that too. So if you believe your product stands up to this level of scrutiny, reach out. Because if you're serious about fixing pricing pressure in the industry, we need better systems, not just better advice. But even when what we're trying to do fails, it should tell us something useful about market structure, customer behavior, and what differentiation actually looks like when the margins are tight and competition is high. And that's really the point of this series. This isn't about moving countries, it's about understanding why certain business models in diving struggle and whether there's a more sustainable way to operate inside the realities of a modern dive tourism. If we keep treating price as the problem, we'll keep treating the symptoms. If we're willing to look earlier at demand, positioning, and customer acquisition, we might actually change the outcome. And that's what I'm trying to do here, in public, in real time. If you're a dive center owner wrestling with the same pressures, or you've tried to move away from price-led selling and hit a wall, I'd genuinely be interested to hear from you and what you've experienced. And if you want to follow along as I test this thinking, what holds up, what breaks, and what needs rethinking, that's what the next videos are all about. If you've enjoyed this video, or it's given you food for thought, make sure you splash down on the subscribe button and hit the like button too. YouTube loves you when you do that. We do too. And if you've got any comments about pricing, marketing, or running your dive shop, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. And until next time, guys, stay diving.